began the night I heard him talking on the phone, though I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. He was in the study, voice hushed yet sharp enough that my heart clenched when his words drifted through the half-open door. "No, not yet," he said, his tone calm but insistent. "She has to agree." A pause. Everything else is set, the dates, the arrangements. It all hinges on her saying yes. My hand froze on the doorknob. My pulse thundered in my ears. Agree to what? I wondered, letting the door click shut behind me, as if to seal away something I wasn't meant to hear. I stepped into the living room, pretending to stretch my arms overhead. He didn't look up. "Want tea?" he called, voice warm. The normal cadence of domesticity. The offer of green tea with honey, my favorite. A peaceful scene, except the echoes of his earlier words were anything but peaceful. I shook my head, smiling. "Just water, thanks." I poured a glass in the kitchen and returned to the couch. He handed me a steaming mug a moment later, his eyes soft. "Long day?" he asked, settling beside me. I nodded, grateful for the embrace of routine. But a tremor ran through me. It was one of those quiet evenings where everything felt a little too perfect. The kind of stillness that wrapped around you like velvet, soft, comforting, but a little too silent if you listened closely. Julian sat on the couch beside me, scrolling through his phone, his thumb moving rhythmically across the screen. I was curled up with a book, but I hadn't turned a page in 15 minutes. From the outside, we must have looked like the dream. Our apartment was a blend of minimal elegance and quiet warmth, sage green walls, linen curtains, a bookshelf organized by color. People who visited often commented on how calm it felt here. Like a sanctuary, they'd say, sipping the wine Julian picked out, or complimenting the candles I arranged just so. We were the couple people envied, the husband who remembered birthdays, the wife who made soup from scratch, the Instagram version of love. And I believed it. I really did. For a while, we'd been married 6 months when things began to shift. Subtly. Almost lovingly. Julian was everything I thought I didn't deserve. Smart, composed, successful, and inexplicably drawn to me, a woman who never turned heads. I wasn't the girl you noticed at parties. I was the one who helped you find your coat when you were leaving. And yet, he had chosen me. Out of all the brilliant, stylish, magnetic women he could have had, he chose me. So when he began to change, I blamed myself. It started with a suggestion that I quit my job. "You don't need to work anymore," he'd said one night, as he stirred a risotto he made from a recipe he said reminded him of Venice. "I make enough for both of us. You could finally rest, do all the things you never had time for." At first, it sounded generous, loving, even. I'd been burning out quietly at the firm, stuck between meetings and metrics and managers who never remembered my name. Maybe this was freedom. A man who wanted to take care of me. Wasn't that every woman's fantasy? But something in the way he said it made me pause. "You're sure?" I asked, setting the table. "I mean, don't you think I'd get bored?" He looked up from the stove, flashing the charming smile that had made me fall for him in the first place. Bored? With me? Never. So I resigned. My coworkers sent me off with a cake and some half-hearted hugs. I told them I was starting a new chapter, and maybe I believed it. Maybe I wanted to. The first few weeks were peaceful. I organized the pantry, reupholstered the dining chairs, took long walks through the park in the afternoon sun. I read more books than I had in years. Julian brought me coffee in bed and kissed my forehead every morning before work. It felt like I was living someone else's life, someone luckier, prettier, more deserving. But then he started asking questions. Casual at first. "Who were you texting? Why do you need to go out today? Didn't you say you were tired? I thought we agreed you wouldn't see Mia anymore. She's so negative." I laughed it off the first few times. He was just being protective. He loved me. That's all. But something inside me began to tighten. I felt it when I stepped outside alone, like his gaze was following me from a distance. I started checking my phone less, turning down invitations, telling friends I was busy, even when I wasn't. One night I asked him if I could take a solo weekend trip. Just a little getaway. I wanted to visit an old friend up north, someone I hadn't seen since university. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "What for?" I hesitated. "Just to recharge, you know?" He set his fork down. "You don't need to run away to recharge. I'm here. This is your home now. We're building something real, aren't we?" It wasn't what he said. It was soft, gentle, but firm, like velvet stretched over stone. So I stayed. And I told myself again, this is what love looks like when someone really cares. The turning point came, oddly enough, over a glass of wine. We were watching the rain slip down the windows, our dinner plates cleared, the soft hum of jazz drifting from the speakers. Julian poured me another glass, then leaned back and said, so casually it chilled me, I've been thinking we should take a trip. I looked up. Yeah? Somewhere far. Peaceful. Just us. No phones, no distractions. What do you think of Vietnam? I blinked. Vietnam? He smiled. I read an article about Sapa. It's a mountain town. Beautiful, quiet, isolated. You'd love it. No tourists this time of year. I nodded slowly. It wasn't the destination that unnerved me. It was how intensely he was watching me as he spoke. Like he was reading my reaction before I even understood it myself. It sounds lovely, I said. He leaned in, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. I want us to reconnect. You've seemed a little distant lately. Have I? I thought. Had I been pulling away? Was that why I felt like I couldn't breathe? The trip was booked the next day. 2 weeks. No return date specified. Just open tickets and an itinerary Julian said he'd handle. All you have to do is relax, he said, kissing my forehead. Let me take care of everything. I should have felt excited. Instead, I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror that night, searching my face for something. Fear. Maybe. Or doubt. Or a reason to say no. But I said yes, because I still believed he loved me, because I needed it to be love, because I couldn't bear the thought of being alone again. The last thing I packed before we left was the book I'd been pretending to read for weeks. It was a novel about a woman who married the wrong man and didn't realize it until it was too late. As I zipped up my suitcase, Julian walked in, smiling. You ready? I smiled back, and in the pit of my stomach, something curled tight, something wordless and dark. I didn't know it yet, but I was walking straight into the story I'd only ever read about. This time, I was the one holding the pen. The days between my resignation and the trip blurred into a whirlwind of packing lists, travel confirmations, and the curious hush that fell over our apartment each time Julian returned from arrangements. He took over every detail, booking flights with meticulously timed layovers, securing a cozy homestay perched above those famed rice terraces, even mapping out local guides who spoke flawless English. All I needed to do was show up. I should have felt excitement. Instead, I felt a quiet wariness, a flutter at the base of my ribs that told me something felt off. But whenever I tried to voice it, he brushed my concerns away with an affectionate smile and a reassuring squeeze of my hand. Love, he'd say, you're overthinking. This will be the adventure of a lifetime. And so I let him lead, watching as he folded each itinerary page with precise care, stuffing passports and insurance documents into the leather travel wallet he gifted me. I watched as he called the vet to arrange care for our cat, even though I told him I'd pay a neighbor. He insisted. He called the bank to raise our withdrawal limits. He texted me daily checklists. Don't forget your hiking boots. Pack a light sweater for the evenings. Bring that journal you love. At night, I lay tangled in our plush sheets, listening to his soft breath beside me, thinking of the whisper I'd overheard months ago. She has to agree. I pushed the memory down, told myself I was being ridiculous. He loves me. That thought unlocked something in me. Relief. If I trusted him completely, maybe that flutter would settle. We spent our final weekend at home like newlyweds on a staycation. He made waffles in the morning, blueberry with whipped cream, and poured champagne at sunset on the balcony. I laughed as he demonstrated how to use the travel converter he packed. He laughed when I misplaced my camera lens. There was laughter. Light. Love. Yet beneath the laughter, I noticed tiny fractures. He answered his phone in another room, voice dropping too low. He checked my email account to make sure our boarding passes went through. He told me, casually over brunch, that he'd taken care of renewing my passport a year early, just in case. I smiled and told him he was incredibly thoughtful, and he beamed back. In the final hours before departure, I found the policy envelopes again. One in my desk, one in his. I held mine up, scanned the fine print. The beneficiary clause was clear. He would receive the payout if something happened to me. I forced a rueful smile, telling myself it was standard procedure. Nothing more. It was just insurance. The taxi ride to the airport was serenely silent. He handed me a flute of sparkling wine as we pulled away from the curb. Outside, Paris blurred past in rain-streaked neon. Inside, he said, "We're going to have the time of our lives." I leaned into him, closing my eyes. For a moment, I believed him. At Charles de Gaulle, he guided me through check-in, immigration, lounge access. Everyone greeted him with deference. Airline staff knew him, I realized. He nodded at each, smiled. They ushered us past the queues. My heart pounded with a mix of pride and unease. On the plane, he poured my champagne and toasted to new horizons. I clinked glasses, stared out the window as the city lights receded. I watched his reflection in the oval porthole, calm, collected, unwavering. We landed in Hanoi at dawn. The air was soft and humid, laced with the scent of jasmine and street food spices. From there, a private car awaited us. Black Mercedes, tinted windows, driver in crisp uniform. I lifted the window to watch the city wake. Scooters weaving in traffic, vendors arranging morning produce, prayer flags flapping over temples. The drive was long. Mountains rose from the rice paddy plains. Mists curled around their bases like silent guardians. Julian told me stories of this journey he'd planned. How he'd discovered a local guide named Lynn who spoke English perfectly. How she'd connect us to a family who ran a homestay perched above a waterfall. He pointed out roadside villages, ancient banyan trees, waterfalls he said were hidden gems. I leaned my head on his shoulder, closing my eyes to the gentle drone of the engine. There was beauty in every window frame, verdant hills, terraced fields, clusters of wooden houses. And yet I felt pinned in place, as if a net of expectations had wrapped around me. I forced a smile. "Thank you for this," I said. "It's breathtaking." He kissed my temple. "Just wait until you see our home for the next weeks." At the turnoff for Sapa Town, the car eased onto a gravel track. Pine trees pressed close. The driver slowed, then stopped before a simple wooden sign, "Homestay Ho Lan,"